He gave you a DNA at birth, and He'll give you an additional gift to help accomplish His purposes for your life. Old faces like mine prove creation and deny evolution. Now, honest scientists at that point should have been saying Darwin was wrong. A few years ago, the phrase "follow the science" was made popular by a high-ranking physician working for the American government. The challenge in following the science is that science actually has no legs, it has no arms, it has no brain, it has no eyes. How can you follow it? So in fact, you're not following the science, you're following people and their philosophical interpretation of the science. That can lead to disaster. About 5 decades ago, sitting in a university setting, I distinctly recall being taught that we were born as blobs. Everything we became or failed to become related to the environment around us. DNA had been discovered, but it hadn't yet developed to the understanding of how it impacted who we were, our gifts, our weaknesses. Now, honest scientists at that point should have been saying Darwin was wrong, but they didn't. Why not? Because a man named Charles Lyell had entered the picture in the 1800s. Charles Lyell was a lawyer in the 1800s with a secret mission to get God out of the sciences. So he became a geology professor and over a number of years persuaded others to take God out of the equation. Now you might ask, why was God in science in the first place? Well, the answer is very simple, because so much of science cannot be explained without calling on a God who created it all. But nevertheless, we can't allow that, he said, and persuaded others to do likewise. And so this impacts us even today. If you look up the concept of intelligent design, that also is mocked. So intelligent design is for scientists who don't want to credit the creator God of the Bible, but acknowledge that things are just too complicated to have come about on their own randomly. So as I mentioned in an earlier video, when a part of science is mocked by others, that's a sign that evil people are in control. Because honest science is always open to new ideas, new data, new approaches to explain whatever it is that's being observed. So that's a sign of dishonest science, and that's impacting us today.
A recent story that illustrates the same point. It's the story of Gunter Beckley, a leading German paleontologist with scores of peer-reviewed publications in paleontology. He's had species named after him because of his discoveries. Well, he made a mistake, as he explains it, and that is that at the prodding of a colleague, he actually read some of the books on intelligent design and found that they were quite persuasive. Several years later, 2015, he finally announced his own support for the theory of intelligent design. The next year, he was told that he wasn't welcome anymore at the Stuttgart Museum of Natural History. He was taken off research projects and exhibitions that he had helped to found or create. And realizing that they couldn't fire him, the museum directors pressured him to leave.
In the last video, I promised that I would show you how old faces like this and others prove creation and deny evolution. You see, evolution says we're getting better and better and better. So this 70-year-old face should look better than it did 70 years ago. It doesn't, nor any other face, nor any other 70-year-old body versus a 20-year-old body. So we are running down, and the science affirms that we are running down. Let me explain that. Thousands of years ago, Eve, a woman named Eve, and Adam were created perfectly, and they were placed in the Garden of Eden. They were tempted to sin, to eat from one of the fruits that they were told not to eat from, and of course they succumbed to that, and they had to be sent from the garden. Now, the consequence of that is that the perfectly made body that Adam and Eve had began to fail, and science recognizes this. So in each cell, there are tiny molecular machines that are so complex. In fact, they're so complex, Darwin said, if you ever discover machines like this, throw my theory away. Of course, that didn't happen. But nevertheless, these machines reproduce our cells flawlessly. That's the way they did in the Garden of Eden. But now, since being cast out of the Garden of Eden, we're running down. Those machines sometimes allow errors. So over my lifetime and over everybody else's lifetime, those errors accumulate into what we call mutations. The mutations show as an old face instead of the face I had when I was 20 or 30. So interestingly enough, science can trace the number of mutations back, and they find out that we all came from one woman, a literal Eve, or a literal woman they call Eve, and everyone on earth came from this one flesh and blood woman. So how long ago was that? Well, depending on the speed of the mutations, and science doesn't know this fully yet, how many per generation, it could have been as recently as 6,000 years, which is just what the people who study creation say it was. And interestingly, it coincides with the Jewish calendar of 5,786 years since creation. So why isn't science saying, wow, the Bible's right. We all should be reading our Bibles. We should be listening to God. Because can't do that because they made a declaration to not allow God in science. And this is tragic because God has a plan for my life, your life. He created you with a specific DNA to lead to a better world for you and a better world for me. If this is interesting to you, here's what you need to do. Doesn't involve me at all. Just say to God silently in your mind, don't type it, don't say it out loud, just silently in your mind so you know that only God is going to act on this. And say, send somebody into my life to explain this more fully. We just simply have to recognize that we also are part of that evil that I'm talking about. He gave you a DNA at birth, and he'll give you an additional gift to help accomplish his purposes for your life. Isn't it great to be part of the God of the universe, the God of love? We can't underestimate the benefit of serving and being part of the family of the God of love. Next video, I'm going to give you 2 absolute, irrefutable proofs that dinosaurs walked with humans on Earth. Why is that important? Because science wants to deny the Bible by saying they died out hundreds of millions of years ago before humans came. But there's absolute proof, you can't deny it, that I'll show to you next time. Thanks for watching.